I hear that there are playoffs a-calling. In about 24 hours from now, at least for our area, we're about to have NFL Wildcard Saturday. That is ridiculous, folks. It feels like just a week ago we were talking beginning of the season, bold predictions, playoff predictions, thought we were going to win the Super Bowl. All that fun stuff and funny business 18 weeks later, and here we are at playoff Saturday and playoff Sunday after playoff Saturday. And we've got two local teams in the big dance. So today on the Gem City Sports Podcast, NFL Wildcard Predictions. Can't wait. We're going to bring you our first round picks, who we think is moving on to Divisional Sunday. Happy to have you in on this Friday night, everybody. Thanks again for being a part of our podcast, and we thank you for watching our shows as much as you do. Rebich Investments proudly powers our podcast tonight, as it does every single episode. They keep financial guidance simple. If you want more information, head over to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or simply give them a call during normal business hours at 814-734-3433. All right, the gang's all here tonight. Nick Artman, Jonathan Williams, Coach Wayne Bradford on this Friday. Gents, I don't even know how we got here to playoff time. We were just talking season predictions at the beginning of the year. We were talking about the Browns were going to win the division. At least one of us said that.
All right, I'm sorry.
Won't point to specific people.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can beep yourself. That's fine. Doesn't mean that I don't have to do it. But you know what? You know what? It's better to be 20/20 vision in the rearview mirror than, stick to your guns all the way through the season. So we're happy that we're revisionist history people tonight and getting to do some wild card playoff picks. Guys, first question to all of you as we get ready for wild card Saturday and into wild card Sunday is, did the season and the playoff teams play out like you expected? I mean, I know we always have these teams in here that make it on a random basis, but how unpredictable was this season based on what we're used to seeing? And Coach, we'll start with you. Any big surprises coming into the playoffs that we didn't talk about during the beginning of the season?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is the LA Chargers, right? I think I kind of talked about them early on, maybe being a dark horse. And so I think on the positive side, the LA Chargers, and on the downside, was really Jacksonville, really bad. And, of course, Miami disappointed as well. But I think those couple for me are the biggest surprises in the AFC. Obviously, NFC, I think your biggest surprise is probably the Commanders. Hats off to Dan Quinn, who played for me for 3 years at Salisbury. I actually coached him, defensive line. So great job by Dan. And, on the negative side, probably there with all the injuries, San Francisco, with their record. So I'd say a couple positive negatives on each side for me in each league.
We've got to draw up a Coach Bradford coaching tree one day. With all his connections to various big names throughout college and NFL football, we've got to come up with a coaching tree and get that out on the Twitter for everyone to see at one point.
That'd be fun.
I was going to say we did a whole episode in that in and of itself. Jay Will, I want to talk with you and Nick about the Browns, because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't just quickly recap their season before we get into picks. A lot went wrong, of course, and I think it started with Deshaun Watson. But if you're Cleveland going into the offseason, I want you two to put your GM hats on for a moment. You've got the draft, you've got free agency, start making trades. What's the first thing the Browns have to do? Because, I think you can talk about the quarterback, you can talk about who they're going to draft and whatnot, but I feel like to get started, you have to make at least a little move of some kind. What's step number one, Jonathan? We'll start with you for the Browns in the offseason.
Well, it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback for you if you don't have anyone to protect them. You have to have an offensive line, and you have to have a stud left tackle for sure, like a franchise player at left tackle to protect your quarterback's blind side. Deshaun Watson played poorly, but Deshaun Watson was also on his back for a majority of the snaps that he took when he was healthy. And that didn't really change once Deshaun Watson went out. I mean, Jameis Winston came in. Jameis Winston got sacked. When DTR played, DTR got sacked. So that is where I would focus. And you could pick a whole range of places to focus on to try to rebuild the Browns. But for me, your quarterback play doesn't improve if you don't have anyone up front to protect them.
Yeah, for me, I don't know how, like, the offensive line is a great point, and they were banged up a lot this year, which didn't help early on. But I don't know, like, quarterback. I mean, it's obvious, right? But I'd be remiss if I didn't say quarterback. We talked about on Monday, do you go out and get a guy like Sam Darnold? Do you go out, do you draft the Shadur Sanders if he's there? Do something. You got to do something because Watson, now you have the Achilles injury problems that he may be delayed anyway. I think there could be an injury settlement that comes out of this. The bottom line is they tried an experiment. It failed miserably. Watson just didn't have the mental part of his game. He didn't seem ready and set, and whether it was the offensive line or the noise or whatever was going on, unfortunately, his fall from stardom went hard. So I think if you're the Browns, you got to go find who's going to be that next quarterback, to try and help turn this thing around.
Yeah, I think you guys are on the right track, but I think before you get to the quarterback or anything, to me, the one guy that you have to check to see, if he's available ever again, is Nick Chubb. I think that, to me, is priority 1A, because we saw when he went down at the beginning of last season, when you ask Deshaun Watson to be the guy, he just simply can't be the guy. And so I think, your first priority for Kevin Stefanski, because he is a guy that needs the run game to be able to allow his quarterback to expand the field, is he going to be able to come back and play? He's 29 years old. He's not getting any younger. We know the injury he had both in the NFL and in college, and they're not easy injuries to come back from. Jerome Ford, of course, in the IR. I don't think he's the answer. Dante Foreman, I don't think is the answer either. So for me, the quarterback issue, I think, is going to be addressed at draft time. I think, if you're going to draft a quarterback, you're going to draft a quarterback. But I think number one is, do you need a running back? Because no matter who you bring in, whether it's Watson back or whether it's a rookie or even Sam Darnold, who was able to have Aaron Jones as a sidecar during the season in Minnesota, you have to be able to have a guy you can rely on to pound the rock. And so I think the biggest thing for me is Nick Chubb going to be the healthy guy that can potentially be the big in the season coming up next. So I go with him, and the Browns just have a lot to deal with. So hopefully they can turn it around next year for Nick Artman's purposes, so he can redeem thyself.
No, I'm never doing that again. It hurt my conscience to pick them to begin with. I'm never doing it again.
No, you mean you're not going to pick the Brook Park Browns next year?
Although if I pick them and that means they get to the bottom of the division, I may pick them every year. It's one less team I got to worry about in the North.
Oh, there you go. Well, the good news for the Browns is they don't have to worry about the stress of the playoffs, because for Pittsburgh Steeler fans, boy, there's going to be a lot of stress had on Saturday, and that's how I start this part of the conversation. Let's get into some wild card picks, and of course we'll start with the two teams that are in the playoffs right now. Mr. Bradford, coach, is going to be in M&T Bank Stadium on Saturday night, so he gets to start scoring the tickets for the Ravens-Steelers game. Lucky guy. Man, you just know everybody, don't you, Wayne?
My son was really excited, so we're traveling to my son's on Friday, taking my daughter down there. She's going to do her clinical, and so we decided to make a weekend of it. So we got 5 tickets to the game, and I was able to score a hotel 0.9 miles from the stadium in Baltimore. So we'll drive in Saturday, check into the hotel, go to Pickles Pub, maybe hit Federal Hill, walk past Camden Yards into the stadium. So it should be electric. And it's not a blackout, it's a purple out, I think. So we got to get all our purple. So should be a great atmosphere. I'm a nervous wreck. I would have much rather had the Chargers come in, and play us. I think we got Jim's number. So to me, though, I went through and looked at the last 3 weeks, and I found some very interesting things. The last 3 games, if you compile the last 3, the Steelers are only scoring 14.7 points a game in the last 3. The Ravens are scoring 33 in the last 3. If you go on the defensive side of the ball, shockingly, Pittsburgh's given up 27.3 average in the last 3 games. The Ravens, 9.7. So, I mean, taking an aggregate instead of looking at one game, everybody's supremely confident of the Ravens winning. I'm scared to death. It's a rivalry game. one strip sack from TJ Watt can change everything. The Steelers are plus 16, although I don't think they've been great the last few weeks. But I said it before. I think there's two teams that are on a mission. One's in college football, it's Ohio State, and one's in the NFL, and it's Baltimore. So I think it'll be a lot closer than people think. 9.5 is not going to happen. I just hope that Tucker is Tucker, and he makes the winning field goal, not Boswell.
I'm nervous about it too, and I'm just sitting at home. So I'm glad you don't have Coach and I sitting side by side for this game, because I don't. You brought up the past 4 games, right? Past 3-4 games, and that Steelers offense looks like a Matt Canada-led offense. They're getting nothing going. On first down, they're handing that ball off to Najee Harris or to Jaylen Warren. It seems like the defense knows what's coming, no matter what defense they're playing against. Cincinnati's defense has been bad all year. That's why they were able to put up 30 points the first time. And Tomlin came out and said, well, we didn't want to do that again this time around. We didn't want to go toe-to-toe with Burrow and the Bengals offense. Okay, but you still got to put up some points, and they didn't. So I am worried about the Steelers' offense. The momentum is not there. Russ, I think if he gets in his head, he starts to lose it. He tries to play hero ball. I think you see him making some of those mistakes. We talked about the locker room issues last week. I just don't think that the state of the Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell Wilson at the helm is enough to go in and win this game. You're right. TJ Watt may get a strip sack. They really know how to play Lamar. Lamar, with the Bengals not making the playoffs, Lamar's probably winning MVP this year. So I think that part is all 100% true. But the past 4 weeks is a trend. It's not like Russ had a one-off game. That's the last 4 weeks. You're talking about a down week, and I think it rolls right into the playoffs. I do think it's close, but I do think the Ravens end up pulling this one out.
Here we go.
Man, that's really hard to hear. Russell Wilson's not the answer in Pittsburgh. It's almost like someone's been saying that all year.
Man, who would have thunk it?
Who would have thought? Can we just make, before we get to Jonathan, and I don't want to cut you off, Jonathan, I apologize, but I want to dive in for a second to the Russell Wilson conversation, because I don't know what you guys think in terms of how much he has to blame. But I look at a quarterback who, and this was my argument at the beginning of the season, Justin Fields is not as poised, he's not as experienced, we understand that. But how can you possibly say, with the way you've seen the last 4 weeks, that Justin Fields, with his young legs, with his ability to keep plays alive, could not be a quarterback that would help Pittsburgh get at least one of the 4 wins? I just think from a longevity perspective, right? From playing 17 games in the season, why are you, and for me it's stubbornness for Mike Tomlin, why are you going with a guy who clearly only has one option in the passing game, that's George Pickens, it has not worked, and somebody who is, in my view, a one-dimensional guy, he moonballs, and that's essentially it. I just think, I don't know, I just think there's a big issue when it comes to the Steeler quarterback situation, and that's my concern.
Yeah, I'll chime in real quickly and let Jonathan go, but I wouldn't blame it all on Tomlin. I'd blame it on Arthur Smith, because Arthur Smith wants to be a 12 personnel, 22 personnel under center, boom, and I don't think Arthur Smith can adjust his offense to Justin Fields' skill set. So there's where I think the failure is. So it's much easier to put Russell into Arthur's system than Arthur modify his system for Justin, and I think that's a travesty.
Yeah, I agree with that point. Because honestly, I feel like Justin Fields should have played more of a role. And I know he's been injured off and on, and there's been games that he's been inactive for, but you saw the flashes of everything you wanted to see from Justin Fields early. And you saw the flashes of things that he could bring to that offense, and just a different dynamic that he could bring to that offense. And then you get Russell Wilson in, and he has a couple of good weeks, but he eventually regresses to being the Russell Wilson that we expected him to be. And he's not very dynamic with his legs anymore, does enough to get the job done and can move if absolutely positively needed to, but not his younger self, obviously, anymore. And when you don't have a lot of weapons and when you don't have a rushing attack that's necessarily feared, I know Najee Harris ran for 1,000 yards again. Congratulations, but you're playing 18 games. It's not very much of an accomplishment to run for 1,000 yards anymore. So, like, when your rushing attack isn't that feared and you have literally one wide receiver who also had his own injury issues and also missed time, running 12 personnel under center, single back, play action, deep shot, that, like, it's not going to work. You don't have the pieces for it. You don't have enough playmakers. You don't have anybody to stretch the field vertically outside of George Pickens. And when he's out, you don't have anyone at all. And you don't have a running back that puts fear in anybody's heart. It was just a lot of different things that just didn't really work. They started off really hot. They started off well. They started off better than anyone, I feel like, expected them to, because of the spark that Justin Fields gave them. Russ was able to come in, play well early on against bad teams because he had a really easy lineup of teams to start off against when he first took over the starting job.
Right.
It just didn't work down the stretch. And then you factor in injuries and you factor in guys being out that you need, and it just kind of started to fall apart on him. And to your point, Coach, Arthur Smith isn't really one to adjust what he does. He is him. When they hired him, you knew he was going to come in, run the football, get in single back, run play action pass. Like that's been him. That is him. That's going to be him. And if you want to grow and progress as an offense, whether it's Russell Wilson or whether it's anyone else, either he's going to have to adapt, or I feel like you might need to get someone else in there that has a little bit of a different perspective on offensive football.
Well, and you brought up Najee too, and I think that's been a big problem the last 4 games. I mean, Najee Harris just looks like he's running into the offensive line, and I get that he's a power back. He's so whether is it Najee, is it the offensive line not opening up holes? Broderick Jones has been, he's had a very rocky year this year, and I think that strength of schedule is big. But I think Arthur Smith's offense is predicated on, like I said, they hand that ball off on first down. Well, in the game in Cincinnati, Najee went 12 carries for 36 yards. I mean, he ran for 5.7 against KC and 4.7 against Baltimore. So the average is there, but it just, the goal line touches, I don't know if it's a receiving game, but when the running game is not working, you're relying on Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson is not the quarterback you want to be relying on. So I think that it's just a recipe for disaster going into Baltimore.
The thing that scares me the most is just simply the fact that this team has gone down the tubes as quickly as they have. And it's, I focus on the quarterback, right? I focus on Russ, and I think justifiably so. But you mentioned the running game. It's not there. The offensive line has regressed, and now all of a sudden the defense can't stop a wet paper bag. And the secondary, which was the strength of the beginning of the season, is falling apart. And I think this is the one part of the equation that we really haven't talked about so far on the show, and that's the coaching. And I know everyone's going to talk about Mike Tomlin and him leaving, and we all have our opinions as to whether or not he should still be the coach or not. But I look at this team now, and I think when you regress this bad this fast, the schedule will be damned. At some point, you have to look and say there's a coaching issue. And I think when I look at Mike Tomlin, I think, is he just a stubborn guy? Is he just somebody who is not going to change once he's made up his mind? Because I think he changed not knowing that his mind was made up when he went to Russ. And that's my big question. So I think for me, is this a coach right now that knows that he's good? He knows that he's okay where he's at and not going to leave unless he forces himself out. And it's a power struggle. That would be my biggest concern right now for Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin.
I think I hate to talk about coaches in a negative light because I am one, and I know what it's like to be criticized. I think the problem is the regression in the assistant coaching staff, losing a lot of quality coaches on both sides of the ball. I don't know if Arthur Smith was the first choice. I'm shocked that Arthur Smith, with the offense that he's produced, is going to be a head coach somewhere else next year. Where's my chance to line up, after being that bad and have 4 or 5 teams want to interview me? What does he bring to the table?
Right.
And then I think there's also something to be said about staying in-house, to your point, being stubborn. Their defensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator and defensive staff jobs have really been an internal circle. They haven't innovated like some of these other teams.
Yeah.
You see the Chargers with a mentor. You see the Mike McDonald at the Seahawks. You see Zach Orr, a young guy at Baltimore. Some younger talent, some bringing in some different ideas. I think they're very, very stale schematically, defensively, and people have found that out and said, "Hey, this is what we can do," and they're really late to the adjustment game.
Well, and I think that on offense too. Well, sorry, go ahead, Jonathan.
I was just going to make a point though, but isn't that just kind of Steeler culture? Like, isn't that just kind of how the Rooney family just typically operates as far as running this football team? It's just like, we stick with our guys. We don't really go out and grab people very often, especially not in management or in coaching. And we just kind of keep everything in house. We don't change head coaches often. We don't change coordinators that often. If we do, we're promoting or we're moving guys. And this just kind of seems to be their philosophy to how they run this franchise from the top down. And to your point, you wonder if a different perspective or a different viewpoint, a different opinion might be needed, because it does seem just a tad bit stale on both sides of the ball right now. And almost like there is this kind of revolving door of kind of the same people over and over again, just in different roles. It just seems like a broader trend to me with that entire franchise. That it's something that they might have to consider changing how they do business and how they operate in the future.
Well, and I think you're right about the Rooneys and the team culture as a whole. I mean, it's always been like that, and it's always worked. But I think you have to look at this and go, okay, it's not working. What do we do?
Yeah.
Right? And I love the take care of your people mindset. It's the culture of the city and the steel mills and the unions and stuff. I get all that. But if it's not working, what are you going to do? Like, I really thought they were going to keep, when they brought Flores in as a linebacker coach, I really thought the succession plan was going to be move him to defensive coordinator. They kept Austin in. And Flores obviously is doing amazing things out in Minnesota. You go out. I do think Arthur Smith was their first choice, because Tomlin has talked about wanting to zig when everybody else is zagging. Everybody's doing these big motion, 3 wide receiver set type offenses, and he wants to stick to this ground and pound run game. To Isaac's point, that's kind of started this whole thing. It's Tomlin is stubborn. He wants to run his game plan. Tomlin is a great coach. When you look at like a motivating type of coach, he's a guy that guys want to play for. But I think to the stubbornness point, he needs to pull back, and you need to get, whether it's offensive and defensive coordinators, whether it's game plan consultants like a Vrabel to Cleveland last year, whatever it might be. You need to bring some sort of modern approach to the offense and the defense, because what you're seeing is the same old, same old. And I don't remember if it was Coach Jonathan that had mentioned it. People figured it out, and now that people have figured it out, they're not changing. They're going to just keep trying to instill their will. And that's just not today's NFL.
Jonathan, who do you have winning this game? I apologize. We went on this tangent before you made your pick.
I've got Baltimore. I just feel like Pittsburgh, especially offensively, is kind of just falling apart down the stretch. To Coach Bradford's point, like 14.3 points per game in the last 3 games. That's just not enough to beat a high-powered Ravens offense. I know there's a familiarity between these two teams, and the games are always closer than advertised. And the Steelers sometimes tend to have Baltimore's number. I think they'll keep it relatively competitive, but I don't see them having enough offensively to keep up with Lamar and Derrick Henry and that whole gang in Baltimore.
I'm
Coach,
appreciative of. Go ahead, Nick.
Coach, how big of a deal in your mind is it if Zay Flowers doesn't, and it looks like he's not going to, play this game?
I think Bateman has done a great job. Aguilar, and of course you got the tight ends. I'm anxious. I think it does present some issues. I think Baltimore will be okay. They've gotten a lot of people involved. I'm hoping that it's the Keaton Mitchell show on Saturday. Yeah. The young man, because Justice Hill probably won't play either. I think Keaton Mitchell is an X factor. Of course, likely the tight ends. And really like Bateman coming around. So it certainly will impact us. I think the kid will probably play. I think he'll be a tough kid, but he may be out there as a decoy if he does.
Yeah. I'm just curious.
I'm appreciative of your guys' generosity for keeping this game close with your picks. It's not going to be close. Baltimore's going to run away with the game. We saw just a few weeks ago. And I think, for me, the biggest thing with the Steelers is it's like we talked about with Penn State in the Wednesday show. Mike Tomlin hasn't shown us any playoff success in the last 7 years. And when you finish the season the way you finished it, to me what it shows is Pittsburgh just can't win big games. They haven't done it all year. Their best win, you could argue, besides the Ravens win earlier in the season, was against a Commanders team who may or may not get bounced in round one. So, yeah, I think Baltimore wins this game by 2 or 3 scores, and if you're Pittsburgh, you're looking at another year with a first-round exit and questioning what the heck happened after a 10-3 start. We're not questioning Rebich Investments, though. We are, of course, happy to have them on as our proud sponsor of this show. 814-734-3433, the number to call. RebicInvestments.com, the website to follow. Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple for quite a long time in the Erie County area. All right, let's go to Buffalo. Train whistles and all on Sunday when the Bills face the Broncos. First of all, kudos to Denver for getting to this point and Sean Payton with getting a rookie quarterback here. When I look at this game, I think it's the classic great season with a rookie quarterback who is in trouble in his first playoff game on the road in Buffalo. We'll start with you on this, Jonathan. How do you see this game going, given the fact that the Bills are a pretty healthy favorite going into Sunday?
I think we talked about this a little bit on Monday at Flagship, and the Broncos offensively are playing really good football. Passing the ball really well. Cortland Sutton is coming into his own. He had a really big game last week. To your point, I feel like congratulations, you've played well to this point. You've had a good season. This is when you run into the buzzsaw that is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Offensively, they have a little bit of firepower to make the game interesting for a while. But to your point, Buffalo's healthy. Buffalo's clicking. They have been all year. Josh Allen has been playing turnover-free football. It has been a sight to see him throw the ball to someone that has the same color jersey as him more times than not this season. And it's done wonders for their offense. When you don't turn the football over, you don't throw interceptions, you look really good offensively and you score a lot of points. So I just think the Bills are playing really good football as a team, and Josh Allen is playing probably the best football of his career right now. And it just sucks to be the Denver Broncos walking into that, because regardless of how good of a season you've had, you don't have enough to compete with that.
So I'm on the other side.
Oh, heck.
I think this is a trap game playoff version. I think Denver comes into this game. Nix has all the confidence in the world. His last 3 games, he's completing over 70% of his passes. You talked about the Sutton connection. The run game is a rotating door, but it's working. They're getting people in. But I think the biggest key to this game is that Denver defense. They're the 3rd overall defense in the league right now. Coming in, I know they're coming into Buffalo and they got to play Josh Allen, but you got Patrick Surtain out there. Whether he's on Shakir, whether he's on Keontae Coleman, whatever that might look like. Their run defense is stout as well. And if you're Denver, you have nothing to lose in this game. Nobody thought at the beginning of the season, or even maybe 2 weeks ago, that this was even going to be a possibility. So you know what? I think Sean Payton's going to fire them up. He's going to use that to their advantage. I think Nix is going to come in with no expectation, and he's looked really, really good these last 3-4 games, really the last half of the season. So they're clicking at the right time, and I think if that defense can hold off Josh Allen, I could see the Broncos, and I'm picking the Broncos to sneak one out over the Bills this week.
Nick, I just want to make you aware. I'm not sure you're aware. The Bills are playing the Broncos, not the Bengals.
Hang
on.
But the Broncos are the Bengals with a better defense right now. So be careful what you wish for.
They
They've
do
won
not have
5
the
in a row.
quarterback. They do not have the quarterback or the receivers. No, I refuse to agree with that. They do not have the same offense.
But they have a better defense, and what travels and what wins.
I agree with that.
What travels and what wins. So, I think the Bills win. The Bills are 4-0 wild card weekend. They don't lose wild card weekend. It's in Buffalo. But Nick, I think it's much closer than people think. It's the least sacked quarterback against the most sacks by a defense in the league. So what does that tell me? Buffalo, run the darn ball, right?
Yep.
Buffalo has to run the ball, all right, get ahead, and then let their front four tee off on Knicks. But I don't think this is a blowout. I do think that, if you were going to tell me, would you take Peyton or McDermott, right? Who would you take as the coach? I'd say you'd favor Peyton. McDermott's worked for him. Joe Brady's worked for him. I think there's a lot of intangibles there as well. I just think Buffalo's experience in this first round, it gets them by. But I think it's a lot closer than people think. I do worry that I don't think Buffalo's played a meaningful game in a while, which is a little scary. If Denver could run the ball more, Nick, I would be saying that I'm close to picking an upset. I think it's close. I think it's very entertaining. But I think Buffalo wins, but they're going to have a scare.
To your point, Wayne, and this was what I was going to make about the Bills' concern to me. I don't think this is going to probe them for the wild card run, but I do think come divisional Sunday, if and when they get there, James Cook's gone 6 of his last 9 games without having an 100-yard game. He has struggled to run the football, and what I've slowly started to see with this Bills team is that they're becoming just a little more Josh Allen reliant. Not that they're necessarily changing their game plan, but you can see that there are some tweaks being made, whether it be at the line of scrimmage or such. And I keep having this theory with the Bills in the fact that, okay, come playoff time, Sean McDermott becomes a different coach. He's a tremendous regular season coach. And Wayne, you make a good point. If you were picking the 2 coaches, I might pick Sean Payton just because of his playoff success and experience in that. Sean McDermott's got plenty of playoff experience, but he certainly changes things a little bit more than what I would like to see as a coach in the playoffs. But I look at this game, and I agree. I think Denver's defense has played well. I think Bo Nix is becoming a solid quarterback. But when I look, to me, the mismatch in this game is going to be Buffalo being able to get home with the front four, who I don't think has played that well in the last few games, but I think matches up pretty well with this Denver offensive line. And I think when you look at the way that the Broncos win games, Bo Nix has kind of been their guy the last 5 or 6 weeks. It hasn't been a ton of running the football, although they have gotten good carries and spurts. But Nix is kind of showing off the arm a little bit. I'm concerned that if Denver keeps that game plan, it's going to go really badly for them. I think Buffalo's going to win this game actually by a couple of scores. And I worry that as a rookie quarterback, you go into that sort of environment, the second you get down a touchdown, your mindset changes. And that would be what concerns me for Denver.
I think if he didn't have Sean Payton, I'd agree with you. But I think Payton can instill that confidence in him. Listen, my picks haven't been great all year, so
I think it's a great pick.
I'm going out on a high.
I'm really, really close. I'm really, really close. But then just looking at what Buffalo's done in the last 4 or 5 years in this round, kind of the intangibles and playing in that crowd. What's the wind going to be like? What's the weather going to be like? I know Denver plays in those extremes, but I don't think Bo Nix is going to blink. Right? He's an older kid as a rookie. It's not, it's not like he's a 21, 22-year-old kid. Played a lot of football, 6, 7 years in college, multiple great systems. Dad was a heck of a player, so football's been in his blood since he's, been an infant. So I don't think the moment will be too big for him.
So those are our picks. Couple of us picking Buffalo in this game. Nick going with the Broncos, Wayne almost taking Denver. And so it's a lot of Baltimore, and it's a lot of blue and white and red for Buffalo on Sunday. Let's go ahead and, guys, do this. We've got 4 more wild card games to pick. We're going to go around the horn. Each person's going to give their pick for a specific game. We'll start with Mr. Jonathan Williams in the other Saturday game. An intriguing one. We were talking about the Chargers. Wayne was saying at the beginning of the show, look, the Chargers have maybe been the most surprising team year one under Jim Harbaugh. Don't have a lot of talented names on the roster, but they're winning games. Going against Houston, that, to me, it's interesting because it's the same predicament last year, right? Cleveland came in, they were red hot. Houston didn't look like they were playing well, and they came in, they blew the doors off the Browns. Who wins the first game of the wild card round tomorrow between the Chargers and Texans?
I'm going Chargers. I like the Chargers' form coming into this game a lot more than I like the Texans' form. I just kind of feel like, especially ever since that major injury to Tank Dell, it just kind of hasn't. The Texans kind of haven't looked like themselves, you know. Offensively they haven't had that same pop that they had early in the season, and they kind of just haven't been able to recapture that early season magic a little bit. I like the way that the Chargers are playing. To your point, they don't have a lot of big names on the roster, not a lot of superstars, but you've got Lad McConkey. You know, you've got a couple of guys that are making waves that might not necessarily be superstar names, but they're playing really good football. They're playing really hard for their coach right now, and I just feel like they're playing better ball at this point in time.
Man, Jim Harbaugh in the playoffs, it's hard to bet against the guy. That's for sure. He's done it in the NFL, as we know, done it at the college level. Houston's going to have their hands full, but of course, they fill a slot into their usual Saturday 4:30 p.m. first game of the playoff slot, as they have for seemingly the last 3 decades. Nick, you get the pick of Green Bay, Philadelphia, which at the time of us taping this podcast, we do not know whether Jalen Hurts is going to be able to go. We anticipate he's going to play. But that in mind, Green Bay, Philadelphia, you get the hard pick here, Nick. Who wins this one?
I don't think it's a hard pick at all. I think it's the Eagles. The Packers are playing great football, but the Eagles are just a complete football team. I do think Hurts plays. I think he probably could have played last week if they really wanted to push him, but they held out, half their starters in that game. I think that offense is potent any way you look at it, between Saquon, Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. Goddard is healthy for the playoffs at tight end. And then that defense, from the pass defense to the rush defense, I mean, they may be the most complete team going into the playoffs. I really like Jordan Love. I like the Green Bay offense. I just don't think they have enough to overpower the Philly defense.
Good one on Sunday night, Nick. Commanders taking on the Buccaneers with two quarterbacks, one who had a great rookie season and one who maybe in any other year would be in the thick of the MVP conversation in Baker Mayfield. Who do you think takes that one in the NFC, Commanders and Bucs?
I like the Bucs. I think Baker's on a hot streak right now. I think he's got something to prove. I really like Jaden Daniels. I think he's going to be a really, really good quarterback for years to come. I think the Commanders are in a great place. I like Dan Quinn as a head coach, and not just because he learned under Coach Bradford. I like that offense. I like what they're putting together. I just think they're 1 or 2 years away from really being able to make a playoff run, and I think they have a tough first pull against a hot Baker and the Bucs.
Wayne, you can go ahead and pick this one too as well. Commanders and the Buccaneers, of course, with your time with Dan Quinn. Who do you think?
Yeah, the Bucs beat them in Week 1, but the Commanders are a different team. And then a great stat: Buccaneers are 0-4 in prime time, baby. So they don't show up in prime time. I think both offenses, in terms of running the football again, is going to be more important. And if you look at the rushing offense with the legs of Daniels, I'm going to take the Commanders. I think they're hot. I really didn't like the Buccaneers' performance last week. I watched them; they struggled mightily. I didn't think they were ready to play when they're playing for their playoff lives. I think the more confident team, the team with the momentum, is the Commanders. And I think the Commanders, Dan is telling them, hey, we're 12-5. We're the third best team in the NFL, and we're built to play on the road. So we're playing against a 9-7 team. We're 12-5. We're the better football team. And I think his team will come out and play that way.
Jay Will, I'm going to give the last pick to you for the Monday night game, and you get the Rams hosting the 5-seed Vikings. By the way, a conversation for a different day, how we reformat the playoff seeding, because this is just absolutely ridiculous. Big one, because Minnesota could be a 14-win team that's one and done in the postseason. Who wins this one? Not Commanders, excuse me, Vikings or the Rams?
Could be a 14-win team that's one and done. I don't believe that they will be a 14-win team that's one and done. I think they get the win in this one. That Kirk Cousins to Justin Jefferson connection, even though they missed on it a couple times last week, that I thought that they could have caught the Lions a couple times in one-on-one matchups with Justin Jefferson and on some missed throws, but that connection has been lethal all season. Their offense has played really well all season. Their passing attack, led by Jefferson, has been nearly unstoppable all season, and I don't think that's going to change. I think the Vikings right now are probably second or third best team in football. So I don't foresee them slipping up against the Rams.
It's a big one on Monday night, and that would wrap up our playoff slate of coverage. Wayne, enjoy the game for us. It's going to be a heck of an environment. And Baltimore, you said it's your first night game you've been to in Baltimore. I heard it gets pretty loud there at night.
Yeah, should be incredible atmosphere, right? Not only is it a night game, a playoff game, but you get your biggest rival, right? I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more. It's going to be electric. I'm sure there'll be tons of Steelers fans there. I'm getting in touch with all my high school buddies and college buddies and kids that played for me back down there. So posted on Facebook, people are reaching out. So I got a lot of people to try to see in pregame. So hopefully it goes well. Should be a fun time.
Oh, hey man, they'll let you on the field. You've got the access pass.
He's got the key to.
I don't know about that. I'm hoping we get Baltimore, Buffalo next week, and then Connor Kelly, Jim Kelly's nephew, played for us at Edinburgh. So, maybe we can get all 5 of us up there in the Jim Kelly suite for the Buffalo Baltimore game next week.
Can I change my pick?
So if we get Buffalo, Baltimore, Coach Wayne Bradford will be at the 50-yard line doing the ceremonial coin toss.
I don't know about that, but we'll be putting in some phone calls next week. We're putting in some phone calls next week.
God forbid Bobby Babich have an illness during the game. You'll see Wayne Bradford with a headset on the sideline.
The 4 of us will be at Elio DePaulo's pregame. Isaac.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I
then,
still got gift cards to that place, baby. You know that.
We've got some connections. We might have to really reach into the bag next week. But that would be a heck of a trip. Do a podcast from there.
Let's just say this: if we get Buffalo hosting in round number 2, stay tuned. We are going to try to make some plans. There's nothing for sure yet, but we are
86 miles, baby. It's not far.
To get some plans. I make the drive every week for the last 2 years, and I get it. It's a fun one. So stay tuned. A lot more coming next week, but hey. For now, enjoy the postseason. Have a wonderful wild card weekend. Make sure to be safe as well as you do it. Our next show, Monday, 9 a.m. It is Flagship City Sports Talk on TalkErie.com, as well as X, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to check in that show as well. Enjoy the Steelers game Saturday, the Bills game on Sunday. We'll see you back here on